What if I told you this game is doomed to fail, unless... Helldivers 2 has recently released, making staggering sales and becoming the next viral sensation, making waves across the gaming community, spreading democracy across the stars to these pesky bugs in Skynet, showing them what happens when you stand in the way of Super Earth. While this game has many fun moments, it does come with a fair share of its own problems, which if they don't become addressed by the devs in the long term, I firmly believe this game will fall off. Before I go any further, I would like to say, I don't hate this game. I believe it has so much potential with what it already has and would like to see it succeed in the long term. Like another Deep Rock Galactic, which has steadily held its player count throughout the years since release and maintaining a consistent, enjoyable quality. I will be breaking this video into 3 segments: technical, balancing, and lastly, bugs. Right now, this game is being played through the eyes of rose-tinted goggles. It's fresh. It's new. You're at the start of your toxic relationship, but over time the cracks start to appear, or in this case, features. We'll start with one of the more outstanding issues: crashes. Right now, some of you may be experiencing this in a varied severity. Fortunately, in my case, this hasn't happened to me, but I have seen it happen to a lot of my friends. The occasional crash in a game is fine and expected every now. But right now, that rate can happen potentially in at least half of your missions. Needless to say, this is very annoying, and with some timings, it can be just a total killer. One example was when we already stepped foot in the extraction ship and one of my friends crashed. Because of that, after a long mission of almost up to 40 minutes, he couldn't get any rewards due to the 20-second timer that starts the moment someone steps foot in. In a more severe case, another friend of mine has an issue where every time he launches the game, it would freeze his PC, causing him the need to restart it. Right now, I'm unsure if it's just an issue with AMD cards or wider, but engineers at Arrowhead Game Studios, please bring this up your task priority. The next one I will briefly mention, as it's already widely known and the devs themselves have spoken about this, is the server capacity. I understand that the player count well exceeded their expectations, but with the limits of it right now, it is severely hindering enjoyment of the game, from the long load times to all the other server related checks that in-game functions have to cross-check. The sooner larger servers can be implemented, the better and smoother a lot of functions can be run. How are we meant to be spreading democracy if we can't even connect to the game? Now to dig into the balancing of the game. The game in its current state is a far cry from perfect. I understand this game is meant to be a social co-op multiplayer experience, however the difference in experience between co-op and solo play balancing is horrid. Wooly does an excellent job raising these points in more detail, and I highly recommend you to go watch his video, but to shorten it, playing solo in this game is simply not viable. There is no enemy scaling, interactables like vault doors that require 2 players, unmanageable enemy quantities, not a solo-only mechanic that helps the player like Deep Rock Galactic giving you the bot, or Risk of Rain 2 being well balanced so that solo and co-op both feel like a nice rounded experience.
Plugging Risk of Rain 2 into the moist meter, I'm giving this bad boy a 95%. I have absolutely no complaints about this game, and this was one of the biggest surprises I've had in gaming in a long time.
And the list goes on. Simply, it will be severely harder and a lot slower. It will be creating artificial difficulty for yourself with very little benefits outside wanting the extra challenge. At least some functions that can help address solo play is to either slightly nerf mob spawn rate, add health scaling, allow the player to take additional stratagems and boosters, or have a cooldown reduction in stratagems, and potentially a bot AI that assists you in task. Next on the balancing list is Ragdolling and Explosives. They can range from not so bad to sometimes mind-blowing. Your character can get chain ragdolled with nothing you can do about it until an enemy walking up to you or killing you while you have zero control over your character. Now when this happens every once in a while, it's something you can shrug off, but in higher difficulties this will happen a lot more common and just becomes an increasingly frustrating thing that pushes the personal shield backpack to S tier, simply for the fact that it prevents one shot in many cases and gives you a certain extent of crowd control immunity. I believe tweaking the values of the ragdolling and giving you an immunity grace period from ragdolling after initial impact could help solve this. With explosions, how they affect the player needs to be tweaked as well. Currently, you could be standing behind a rock in cover, but a rocket hitting that rock on the other side could still hit you. Not to mention, some explosions, despite visually looking like you are well out of it, can still hit you. There has been a case as well where I was in my shield generator and an ally autocannon shot the shield bubble, but it still hit me inside with explosion radius killing me. This causes extreme frustration, and I can see little enjoyment in how unfair it feels to be killed like this. Fixing the hitbox for this and having it properly dynamically blocked by the environment would help with this issue. Now onto weapons. In this game, there are 2 items that if you don't have right now, it feels genuinely awful to do any high difficulty missions, making it a pseudo block for progression for those who want to do higher modes. This is of course the railgun and the personal shield pack. The jump in both defensive and offensive powers these options give you are immeasurable. It can change you from getting one shot to beating a charge in 10 seconds rather than 1 minute. It can make taking on a Bile Titan manageable rather than it being your worst nightmare. The list goes on with how strong these options are. The problem though is this requires you to be level 20 to access them, which takes roughly 20 to 30 hours to reach on average. I could finish an entire single player game in that time. It is natural for a higher level progression to give you stronger items, which is fine. The problem is the options prior to reaching this level aren't incrementally strong enough in the progression such that when you do reach level 20, it feels like a massive jump in power rather than a slight increase, leading to reduced options in the late game. Of course, there is still a 300kg Eagle Bomb that one-shots Bile Titans, but this is for Bile Titans, not Chargers, and there is a significantly larger Charger volume than there are Bile Titans. I would like to see a buff or more options that deal with armored targets, as right now they are the main threats in levels rather than soft targets. The last part about weapons is the difference between third-person shooting and first-person. Now I don't have definitive proof that it is different, but from the feeling alone, like in this clip, when I shoot in third person, you can see how much harder it is to control the recoil bubble compared to if I do it in first person, leading me to use first person most of the time just purely for control and accuracy. I would like to see the third person shooting feel more identical to the first person. Now, one of the main aspects of Helldivers 2, friendly fire. Coming from the devs of Magicka, it's almost well expected that you're going to be able to kill your teammates. But in its complete chaotic state right now, I believe there needs to be adjustments to how friendly fire is treated. While it does bring to the package some funny moments, there are aspects of this that are straight up detrimental to you, especially as you approach the harder difficulties. When you run out of lives and you're just sitting there waiting for the respawn timer cooldown after being team killed so many times and having more team deaths instead of getting killed by an enemy, yeah, not exactly fun. Getting killed by standing directly on a bombardment drop or getting shot by a teammate accidentally, yeah, that's fair game. But being at an edge of an explosion by a mortar sentry, or the sentry dog just decides to 180 flick and murder you, or even worse, your own one aims down and shoots you, 100 0ing you in half a second, is simply not fun. There needs to be a percentage reduction damage in friendly fire in this game. That, or a booster that gives your team a bonus of friendly fire reduction damage to allow for options. With how many things that can already kill you in instant by enemies, the last thing you want is to also be watching your back from your own teammates. Also, adding an indicator for where grenades are sitting after being thrown and a parabolic arc to indicate trajectory would be a nice bonus to have. One other quality of life improvement too would be able to make your radar color match your own. Like, seriously, what is the point of having this different from your own color? It's downright confusing for no reason. Lastly, bugs. I'll point out a few that I would like to see fixed in the near future, as these just feel extremely awful when encountered. While these aren't going to reflect all the ones I've experienced so far, these are the main ones. Currently, you can drop pod into a rock and be stuck, and the only way you can get out is to grenade yourself. When you pick up super credits on medals, you can lose all movement input control as well as shooting, which could potentially lose a life if this happens with enemies around you. There are points which you can jump into which causes your character to be stuck. You can be perpetually stuck in the after mission loading screen, which never finishes the load. If a pod crashes into the escape ship, it is client-sided, which the ship will be flipped and you are unable to evacuate. Being unable to resupply an entire mission. And armor value and explosive damage reduction from armor not currently working. Let me know down in the comments any other bugs that you're personally experiencing and your personal thoughts as well on the state of the game. Hope the devs can address these issues in the near future in the coming months, as after all, I want to be able to continue enjoying this game and for it not to be something that's forgotten in 3 months. It already does so many things well, and I can see that it has a lot of potential for so many more future updates and cool content, like potentially more enemy factions or more game modes and maps. All in all though, you can tell the devs really care about their game. They've been pushing out consistent updates and working overtime hard just to patch it as fast as possible, so let's be a little patient with them and see where it takes us in a few months. And lastly, remember to keep spreading that democracy.
Become a legend. Become a hell.